Hello, everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome to our summary of learning project. We're using S'more and Screencastify. We titled our project 16 Gigs of Learning because it sounded suitably techy.
Not sure if our course was actually 16 weeks or not, but that's beside the point. All right, so we kind of started our project by looking at where Zach and I were before we started the course. So we called this the analog era.
As opposed to the digital era.
Before our journey began, both of us were pretty skeptical about using technology in the classroom. We both had different yet similar experiences using tech in our pre-internship and internship. We enrolled in this class to become more confident using technology.
So for me, I tried to use technology as often as possible in the classroom, but it never seemed to work for me. Students would abuse the privilege, and that's assuming that the tech tool or resource would even load properly. The only really positive experience I had was using technology as an adaptation for exceptional learners. My hope for this course was that I could be reflective of my own practice, figure out where I went wrong, and learn how to better integrate edtech so it wasn't just a novelty. I had been using Twitter for 2 years prior to the start of the course, but never as a professional tool.
For me, I used the typical PowerPoint for lessons, but when it came to applying technology to my assignments, I kind of steered clear from using it. One reason is because we didn't always have access to computers. However, we did have iPads, but iPads are great, although we weren't always equipped with enough for every student, so this couldn't be used as effectively. I did, however, attempt to use Socrative and Remind with my students. I really enjoyed using Socrative for assessment, but Remind was kind of hard for me to even remember to use it. What it really came down to was my lack of confidence using technology. I wanted to take the course to learn how to be more confident using it, and as well as find different ways that I can apply it effectively in the classroom. I had never used Twitter before this class, but now I do see the benefits it has for teachers. Before, I'd only really seen it as a personal tool that I figured I would have no use for. But it is great to use for gathering resources and building professional learning network.
So one thing we learned that we think is pretty crucial throughout the course was the SAMR model, which stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And the picture you're looking at now is kind of an image that came to define the course for me. I think I originally pulled it off the Twitter account from Socrative, but it compares the SAMR model to the types of coffee you would get at a fancy coffee place, where substitution, it's just your plain old cup of coffee. Tech is acting as a direct tool substitute, no functional change. Um, it's kind of a novelty. It's replacing technology for the sake of it. Not always a bad thing. For example, Kahoot, it's not that different than a regular quiz, but it can get students a little bit more engaged, a little bit more interesting. They're using their phones and they're feeling more connected, more comfortable with the content. But on the far end of the spectrum, we've got modification and redefinition. This is when tech is it's a significant redesign for the task, or it's the creation of brand new tasks that we could never have done without ed tech. These are compared to like a caramel macchiato or a pumpkin spice latte. The goal here, we're using technology to redefine our teaching practices. Technology is not being used as a replacement, it's changing the game completely.
So one of the things part of our course was learning how to blog. So early in the semester, we talked about creating a digital footprint for ourselves as educational professionals. Part of that footprint is creating a blog that captures our successes, challenges, and significant moments throughout the course. At first, Zach and I were apprehensive to putting ourselves out in the open for anyone to see. But we were unsure, or what we were unsure about is whether or not we would offend anyone or simply cause people to not agree and therefore not like us. What it really comes down to is that if people don't agree with our beliefs, well, we wouldn't want to be hired there or even associate with those people. So, especially if what we are blogging is true to us.
Our blogs serve three main functions. They are a core way of expressing our thoughts and opinions on the course content. They're a way of tracking the progress of our learning projects, more on that in a bit, and as a professional e-portfolio. This helped us build a professional learning networks, and it made contact with similar-minded individuals and experts in the field. It got to give us kind of a hands-on exploration of digital citizenship by allowing us to create a professional identity online. The idea is that if you were to Google yourself, You're getting something professional, something substantial that comes up rather than your Facebook page.
We included our blogs here for you to follow because we learned that self-promotion is a great thing for beginning teachers. Twitter also was a significant learning tool and helped us connect with the wider world of education. There were times that I posted a question and had professionals in the field retweet it for help, so thanks to Alec and Katia. But sometimes this yielded results, however, other times not so much. I'm still learning to pose the right questions, link the appropriate hashtags, and even ask the right questions at the right time of day. All of these things play a role in the results that I want.
In Saskatchewan, one of the biggest learning networks is the Sask Ed Chat on Twitter Thursday nights. I logged on a couple of times, was able to interact with some other teachers, some great individuals, and learn a lot about the importance of collaboration. If you want, you can follow both of us on Twitter at Karasirki and at Zach_startup. The next we want to look at 4 aspects of the course that we spent a considerable amount of time discussing. The first one was the history of EdTech. Have you ever stopped to think about how much of an innovation chalkboards were when they first debuted in the classroom? EdTech has always seemed to me like a recent trend in education, but we discovered how everything from chalkboards to overhead projectors to PowerPoints, typewriters to computers, major, massive innovations in their time. EdTech is a continuum, meaning that while we study the past, we can also look to the future and speculate on what a fully tech-integrated class will look like in just a few years.
The second major point that we looked at was technology and relationships. So how has technology changed the ways people interact with one another in the 21st century? And Zach actually has a pretty good example from his class.
During my internship, I was teaching a Psych 20 lesson on relationships. And one of the first questions I asked was, how are your social interactions, how are your dating processes different today from even when I was in school? Their answers kind of surprised me. Text messaging, sure. Facebook, sure. A lot of not face-to-face communication. Also, nude pictures of oneself. And I regretted asking this question almost immediately. But this brings up a good point. We talk about how teens are being exposed to more sexually explicit content as it has become more available for them to access online.
One of the documentaries that we watched in class was called Sexed Up Kids, and this talked about how students aren't understanding the difference between private and public information anymore. Things that should be kept private are displayed on social media or through text messages, which students think is private, but in fact is very, very public. This and the over-sexualization in the media is greatly impacting our students. As educators, we need to teach our students the importance of knowing what to send or put online, and as well as building their own self-confidence. Part of this comes from being positive role models for them, as well as having our students understand the consequences of their actions.
In many ways, technology has broken down a lot of borders and a lot of inhibitions between people. But at the same time, it's created a wall between genuine human interaction. The lines between real world and digital identity are constantly warping and growing less distinct.
The next section is technology and identity. So how is our identity portrayed online, and how can we control what is seen? As professionals, we need to be aware of how we are presented online, as well as how our students, they need to know how they're being presented. As teachers, we need students to understand that as they post and share who they are online, that it can be accessed by pretty well anyone. This is largely connected to what we said about digital relationships and what we will say about digital citizenship.
We're going to leave you with a quote before we get on to part 2 of our presentation. This is from @KevinHuddycut on Twitter. Our kids are growing up on a digital playground and no one is on recess duty. As teachers, we can't control what our students do online, but we can create an environment and a chance for them to have a positive identity online by giving them a space to do so in the classroom. Okay, we will see you in part 2. Thanks for listening.